don't think everybody kind of knows about. And so my goal here is hopefully each one of you can take at least one thing, hopefully more than one tip or trick that you didn't know before about the SQL editor that can help you kind of improve your productivity when working on Databricks. So just by way of kind of housekeeping, I'm going to do just like 5 minutes of slides. Probably won't even take 5 minutes. And then I think slides are boring personally. And so I'm going to jump into a 25-minute live demo. And then afterwards, we'll have some time for a Q&A. So think of questions that you have as we're going through it. And then hopefully I can answer them. And if I can't, I will get back to you and we can get an answer to those questions. So I think at a high level, I just want to start by saying what my goal is when developing SQL authoring experiences on Databricks. And so I think at a high level, I'm trying to build simple and powerful experiences. And what I mean by simple is I really want to make it easier for people who are not familiar with SQL or who are not familiar with Databricks to onboard and get value out of their data. While at the same time, we want to make it more powerful, which means for people who probably like most of you who are in Databricks a lot or writing SQL 4 hours a day, we want to give you the tools that you need to boost your productivity and be more productive. And so I think there's 3 key pillars that we do this with. The first is with an approachable yet powerful UX. So there's always kind of like a balance between how can we make the UX simple, but make it also effective for power users? And I think with the new SQL editor, we've done a good job of kind of focusing on the things that are core to the SQL authoring experience while keeping the things that are powerful kind of tucked away, but also at your fingertips with things like the command palette and quick ways to access these more advanced features. The next pillar is the SQL editor is collaborative by nature. So, I know that often when you're doing your data projects, you don't work alone in isolation. You work with other teammates, or you often have to share things. And so the new SQL editor supports real-time collaboration by default. So if you work with a coworker across the world, you guys can pair program like you're sitting next to each other in the office. And then you can also share those findings with other people really easily. And then we have built-in commenting and other things to make collaboration a lot easier. And then the third pillar is kind of like, this is probably the biggest pillar here, but we're infusing the SQL editor with intelligence. And I say intelligence because we're doing more than just adding AI into it. We're doing things like personalized autocomplete, where based on your personal usage of autocomplete, we give you suggestions based on your usage. And so you are able to kind of be more productive, and it goes beyond just AI. And I'll show you a ton of ways that we're doing this in the demo. I couldn't, talk about being more productive in the new SQL editor without talking briefly about the Databricks Assistant. And so I like to call this your context-aware SQL companion. And every other product has integrated AI assistants and ChatGPT and stuff. But what makes ours different is that it knows what you're doing. It knows your context. So it knows the code that you write. It knows the code that your coworkers write. It knows your favorite tables and can use all of that to provide you an answer that's specific to your needs when you ask it, and it's embedded straight into the product. So again, I'll show you more of this in the demo. And then finally, I just want to talk about, there's a couple different places where you could write SQL on Databricks. So I'm going to talk about the SQL editor today, but we're doing a lot of work to make it so that the same features that we add to the SQL editor and to the notebook are overlapping. And so if you would prefer the notebook for a more kind of iterative development flow, almost everything that I'm going to show you today about the new SQL editor will also apply to the notebook. And the same is if you like the notebook, or sorry, like the SQL editor, before it might not have been up to speed. There might have been some features of the notebook like real-time collaboration that we didn't have in the SQL editor, but we're working hard to kind of unify the two surfaces. So just want to say you can use whatever surface that you want to use when writing SQL on Databricks. Okay, so with this boring slides out of the way, let's jump into a demo. So the first thing that I want to start with is how we're helping you to organize your information with the new SQL editor. So if I just go over here to I'm in the home page and go to the new button and click new query, you'll see I am brought into the SQL editor. And if I go over to the workspace, you'll see that I'm naturally in the drafts folder. So we got a ton of feedback from people saying like, oh my gosh, like I just hate that I have like new query everywhere throughout the entire workspace. It's cluttering all of my areas that I'm working in. And so can you please help us with that? And the answer is yes. We kind of redesigned the draft folder so that now that anytime you create a new query, it gets put in the specific drafts place. And then if you want to go through and make this exist, say this is no longer just a one-off ad hoc analysis. I want to have this persist. I can say something like BrickTalks demo. And if I hit enter here, it will automatically move out of the draft folder, so you don't have to worry about saving it anymore. And then now is integrated into the rest of my workspace. And so we also have with the new SQL editor a workspace file system side panel integration. And so it's really easy to kind of keep your work organized. So if I want to, I can just drag this over to my BrickTalk demo here. it will move there. And then if I click into here, I have the other stuff that I'm working in. And so we're really trying to make it easier to organize your work with the new SQL Editor. The next thing I want to kind of touch on is the Catalog Explorer side panel. And so, this is where really for a lot of you, as probably your bread and butter as SQL analysts and as people who do data science, you work with tables. And so you need to be able to see all of the tables that you're working with. There's a few things that I want to call out. One is we have this For You section, which has things like your favorites, and then it has tables that you're actively using. And I personally find this is where I mostly hang out at. If I go to all, it's like there's just so much information here. If I was to expand these tables, it just kind of gets overwhelming. And so I like to favorite a few things. Like I'll favorite my schema, and then I can have that just always right here available. And I'll show you just how to favorite something. If I, for example, want to go favorite this Craigslist vehicle data set, I can just say add to favorites here, and then it's a top level favorite for me. Another thing that we've recently added is quick previewing of data. So before you might have to go write a simple select query, which wasn't the biggest deal, but took a little bit of time. And so now, for example, say I'm curious between the car sales data set and the Craigslist vehicle listings data set, which one's the one I want to use. I can just hover over it, and then I get this preview data, which will then just really quickly show me the top 100 rows from this table, so I can see if this is the table that I want to use. And so, again, I could show this again for the car sales data, and then I can do that really quickly. So that's kind of the Catalog Explorer side panel. I definitely think this is something that has a lot of advanced functionality that people don't know about, and so I would kind of encourage you to play around with this. And same with being able to filter now between tables, volumes, functions, models. So there's a lot you can do here. We've worked on the search a lot recently to make that better. It was really bad for a while, so we've improved that. Okay, now kind of going over into the SQL Editor. Maybe the first thing that I'll kind of orient you towards is the tabs. So a lot of people I find don't know that if you right-click on the tabs, you get a bunch of actions here. And so, I can say I can close all to the right, close all to the left, close all others, open in a split view. So for example, if I wanted to do that, I could open two queries side by side, which is a new thing. Right now, we have one result window for both of them, which is unfortunate, but it's just an implementation detail. We're working to make it so that you can have separate results as well, so you can kind of compare two queries. And then there's just a ton of other options of things you can do if you want to copy the path, or if you want to move all just within the right-click menu from the tab menu. So that's something that I find a lot of people don't know about, but I think it's a pro tip to kind of help boost your productivity. Next thing I want to go over and talk about is the run button. So I find a lot of people don't know actually. So I just type select 1 and select 2. That depending on what you select for this run button, you can run all statements or you can run a single statement. And so frequently I have people that are used to kind of traditional database tools that run one statement at a time. And they're like, hey, I don't know how to do that. And it's because the default kind of starts with running all statements. But if you uncheck run all statements, I can just run this single statement here, and I'll see I can get select 2. And if I run this here, I get select 1. If I was to go and check this to run all statements, now when I run this, I get both of my results, and so I can kind of tag between the two results here. We also have the ability, if you want to run and download all your rows. So for example, say you're going to need to take this to a CSV file later, and it's a ton of data. You used to have to kind of run a query, see the data, and then re-execute that to download everything to a CSV. Now you can just do that with one try if you just click this button. Next thing I'll talk about is the catalog picker. So right now it's at the main default. I can go to main JSON here. This is just a very quick way to be able to basically not have to write out the full 3-level namespace for every single time you're writing a table. This is one of the things that's unique to the SQL Editor right now. I personally, I think it'd be helpful to bring to the notebook, but not everyone wants to kind of bring this functionality to the notebook as well. So we're kind of trying to figure out how to unify that right there. And then, yeah, I think that's everything from the toolbar. I think since I changed this off to get a new session here. So I think now kind of orienting you towards the code editor, the next thing I want to talk about is our autocomplete. So I've just typed select star from, and then I pop open. Let's see, looks like, let me see, looks like something's not quite working there. We all know with live demos, they never want to work out. Let me try this again here, see if this, weird that I'm not getting any autocompletes. This is always, I feel like, what happens. It's usually the assistant, the AI that messes up for me, but not autocomplete. Okay, here we go. So it looks like I just had something with my with my my local kind of browser state. So yeah, get car sales data here, but you can see just since I favorited car sales data and Craigslist data, they show up kind of on top of all the other things that I want. So again, just showing how if you do favorite tables, it helps us to help you and helps you to be more productive. So I can just do like, you know, car sales data here. But another thing that another way I could do this is if I was just to go back and type SSF. This is a query snippet. So this is a new thing that we have for both the SQL Editor and notebooks is query snippets. And so these are basically snippets that you define. You say, hey, I'm going to type this keyword, and then I want you to give me a certain function call or a certain code based on that. So if I just hit accept there, I get select star from, and then I can just say, you know, like my car sales data, and then I can go back here and just delete that. And it looks like when I refreshed, got a new session again. So this is, yeah, a very, very quick way to basically write your SQL. And I think this is a very underrated way to boost your productivity. So it's nice for things like SSF. It's also nice for things like, I find when I have a where clause, for example, I often want to filter to like the last 6 months. And so I just have like a query snippet that can just basically write that for me really quickly. I'll show you how to get there. You go to view, and then you go to query snippets is how you get to that. And it just pops open a little menu here, and you can just click create SQL or create query snippet. This is the word that you want to replace. So I could say Jason, and then you could, you know, have like select Jason is cool or something like that. Even though I'm not cool, I like to think I am sometimes. So that's query snippets. That's another powerful way to kind of boost your productivity. I will say the other thing that I'll talk about as we're kind of talking about quick productivity boost is the command palette. So you can see I went through here and I went to view query snippets, or you can just use the command palette. So if you click down here, and it's also accessible via Command Shift P or Control Shift P on Windows, you can pull up the command palette. And so then I could just type like, you know, query snippets and pull that up again. Or for example, if I wanted to like change to dark mode, for example, I could do that. I'll go back to light for the purpose of this demo. Or if I wanted to, like, you know, clear my outputs, there's just so many things you can do with Command Shift P, and it's helpful because you don't have to take your keys off the keyboard, or your hands off the keyboard. You can just kind of use that immediately. Okay, another thing I'll talk about now is, let's get back to this this query is we have custom SQL formatting now. So if you hit Command Shift F, you're able to format your SQL. So you can see it took it from one line to nicely format. But we heard a ton of feedback that was like, hey, Jason, like I love your auto formatter, but it doesn't work for my company style guide. We like to have leading commas, or we like to capitalize everything. And so that is no longer a problem because we have custom SQL formatting. So if I go use the command palette, I'll go to developer settings. And if I scroll down if I go to the code editor and I scroll down to SQL format, you can see I have all these options for how I can format my SQL. And so you can see I can do like keyword casing, and let's say uppercase to keyword casing. And then if I close this out and then run the same thing, you can see that I got capital select and capital from. So custom SQL formatting is a relatively new thing that is also hopefully going to help you out. Next thing I'll talk about is the multiple statement results. So if I go back to the Craigslist vehicle listings data set as well, I'll format that so I have that nicely. And then I'll actually uncheck. Actually, we can keep run limited sample for now. I kind of hinted on this earlier, but we do have the ability now to run both statements and have both results kind of loaded in the output. And so I can quickly, you know, tab through. So for example, say I want to join these two tables, but I'm not sure if they have a matching column. I can say, okay, in this first table, I have VIN. In the second column, let's see, do I have anything that I could join on? It looks like I also have VIN, but it's uppercased. And so that's kind of like I can quickly compare to be able to see, you know, between the two tables, how they relate. I will get rid of this because we're just going to work with the car data set for now. And then I will not limit 1,000 here. And the next thing I want to talk about is the result table. So fun story for me, at least, is the result table is the first thing that I worked on Databricks. We had an old result table that had kind of no interactivity, and they're like, hey, Jason, you're new. We need to work on the result table. Like, can you do this? And I was like, yes, that would be such a fun project to work on. And so this is like one of my favorite parts of the product, but we kind of redid it. It's been about a year now since we completed it, but you have like kind of Excel-like selection mechanics if you want to grab things like this. If you just want to use keyboard shortcuts to kind of do that, you can do that. But the thing that I really want to focus on today is our improvements to filtering. And so we worked really hard to hopefully add a lot of cool filtering capabilities. So one way you can add filters is if I just go in here and I click filter, and I say, is wanted, I can just type kind of Audi. I like Audi cars. I don't have an Audi. Love one day, maybe. But I can filter to see Audis there. And then that's one way is kind of clicking into the column header. Another way is just by right-clicking here and saying filtering by this value. So I can say, if I want to filter by A4s, I can do that. Maybe we're interested in the color of white, so I can filter by there. And then another cool thing that we can do is if the filtering is dependent on the data set. So I can go in here and I can say, data type. I can say filter, and then since this is a date column, I can get like things like after. And so for example, like what if I want like after January 1st of 2015, I can go in here and have a calendar to be able to kind of select, oops, went too far. So I can select 2015 and then January. And I find this is very nice because I often don't remember the syntax because there's like a bajillion different ways to write dates. And so it's nice to be able to have that right there. So, okay, that's one way to create filters, but I want to say that I think there is a better way to add filters, a more quick way to add filters. So we have Audi A4s that are white sold after January 1st. And so another way you can do this is with text to filter. And so I can click on this little AI icon here, this assistant icon, and I can just say white Audi A4s sold after Jan 1, 2015. And we can see I just added the exact same filter condition that I had, but just using natural language. And it was much quicker to do that. And so that's one of the cool things that we have that really helps me is, if you want to have a specific drill down, just describe in English what you want to do. I think in any language, actually, probably best in English, but any language works. And then it will add those filters for you. Another cool thing is that, people said like, oh, Jason, like I like your filters, but I work on data sets with billions of rows, and this only works on the truncated data. And so it doesn't really work for me. The good news is now if I have, we have the ability to do this on the full data set. So you can see filters applied to truncated data. If I click this, I can then apply it to the full data set, which will then basically rerun with a cache version of the query and do it on all of your rows. And so you can see here, initially I had just like 5 rows, but now I have 368 rows, which show up there. And so this is based on the entire data set. Another cool thing is that it also applies to visualizations now. So if I go here and add a visualization, maybe I'm interested in the price of cars based on their color. So if I go to color here, and then I say, I want to add a Y column, and I want to say the selling price, and let's say the average selling price. You can see this shows me, basically the average selling price for all colors right now. But if I save this, what I see immediately is just for white because I'm filtering just to white. So if I remove white now and apply these changes, you can see I get all colors. And so we've got to give something educational here. So it looks like if you're going to buy a used Audi, white has the best resale value or is the most expensive one. And so maybe we can take out Audi as well and A4s. And we can see what the overall best price is. And so it looks like maybe charcoal. Charcoal is like the best, the most expensive used car price. So that's something there. I can remove this now because we're not going to use it for the remainder of the demo, but the filters do apply to the visualization. So if you need to quickly kind of dig into a specific area or maybe share something or just kind of do more exploratory data analysis, you can add filters to your visualizations. Let me remove this now. And then one thing I will show too is we have the ability now to basically create a SQL query based on your filter. So you can say, hey, like I did all this filtering. Now, like what's the SQL to do this if I want to maybe reuse this or if I want to check it into Git, for example. This is a pretty simple one, so it won't be as exciting. But you can imagine if we did something more complex, we have this create query button, which creates SQL query from filters. And if I click this, you can see, oh, it should have applied to the SQL code here. Looks like we have a bug in this right now, so I'll have to go see what's going on there. But you could imagine it would basically rewrite the SQL statement, and it would add basically the filters in the SQL statement directly. Okay, that is all I wanted to show on filtering. The next part of this that I wanted to show you is we have this thing called the column explorer now. And so if I click this, I now get a list of all the columns here. So this is a pretty small table, and so it doesn't actually maybe make too much of a difference, but you could imagine if I was working with a table with hundreds of columns, it'd be kind of hard to navigate through all these things. And so, for example, if I want to like uncheck all the columns and say, oh, I'm just interested in like the year, make, model, let's look at the VIN, and I want the selling price. You can really easily just do that and say, maybe I want the selling price to be at the top. I can just drag here, and I can say the selling price is now the first thing that I'm looking at. And so this is a really awesome way to work with tables, especially with really wide tables. I'll go ahead and add this back. So we have everything as before. And then another cool thing, and I'll actually take away this filter too, is we have now inline execution history. So, you know, imagine you were writing a query and it ran for like 20 minutes, and then you ran another query because like that's your next thing, and then you wanted to go back to that. You're like, oh, do I have to run, you know, the same query again? And thankfully, you know, we cache things, and so we can help it be be quick. But now you just have inline execution history right there. So for example, if I just, you know, click on this, I can just see the results of previous runs, which is yeah, hopefully a very nice way and saves you a bunch of time. And now it used to be kind of like in the side panel over here. Now we put it directly in the output panel so that you can just really quickly access it right when you're working with the results. So that's another feature that hopefully you will enjoy that was released pretty recently. Okay, so that's kind of like actually, I'll bring us back to my current result here. That is pretty much what I wanted to share on the result table. So now I wanted to talk about, you know, what are the things that we're doing to basically embed AI directly into the experience that you're working with. So let me actually go back to Jason here and just run a simple query here. So now imagine I'm working and I want to join this, and I can just type join, and you'll see that I'm immediately granted with a basically AI autocomplete suggestion. So it says, oh, you could do this on your Craigslist vehicle listing. So I hit tab to accept that. And then it actually knows basically the join that I want to do there. It's doing a where clause. It's getting ahead of me. But basically, I can just show you and run this. And we can see that this actually ran. So we joined our car sales data set with Craigslist vehicles. So it looks like some of the cars in this car sales data set were also sold on Craigslist. And I was able to join those. And again, I didn't have to know anything about that. I just was able to let the AI autocomplete generate that for me, which is pretty awesome. The next piece I want to talk about is assistant quick fix. So maybe I want to look at Audis again. So I can say where make is equal to, for example, Audi, and model is equal to A4. And I don't know if y'all caught it, but there's actually an error in this SQL code. I didn't actually catch it the first time that I wrote it, but thankfully the assistant will. So if I run this, we'll see, hey, there's an ambiguous column reference. You have both make and model in both the data sets. And so the assistant just gave me, it said, hey, I know how to fix this. And so without me doing anything, and I don't have to take my hands off the keyboard, I can just hit Command Enter to accept and run. It will then fix my code for me. And so that is just another way that we're kind of bringing the assistant directly into you. So you don't have to kind of go away to the side panels yet. You can just basically use it directly in line. Okay, let's go back to just this original data set here. And I will say another thing that I like to use the assistant for is when I'm writing a query that it's like, I can definitely write it, but I probably can't write it as fast. So, you know, say I want to maybe aggregate and see what the most expensive selling price is per car make. I could, you know, write out the 7 lines of SQL, or I could just go over here to the side panel and just say most expensive, or sorry, actually, let's say selling price by make. And it knows what I'm working with, and it can just basically quickly generate the SQL code for me. So then I can look at the selling price by make, so we can see, like, you know, it looks like Ford has the highest volume, so has the most selling price based on this data set. If I want to go to average here, I could then see it looks like the most expensive car brand is Rolls-Royce, followed by Ferrari, followed by Lamborghini, which makes sense. So again, these are queries that's like, you know, I think we could all write, but the assistant really speeds us up in doing that. Okay, those are kind of a few ways that you can use the assistant to basically improve your productivity when writing SQL. Now I want to talk about how you can use the assistant to help you infuse AI into your analyses. So One of the things we have with Databricks is kind of these AI SQL functions. And so this is just basically, this is an Amazon reviews data set. And so you can see I have like the user ID, I have the review summary, I have the review text. But what if I want to basically do a sentiment analysis on this? And then what if I want to translate, I mean, maybe I have some people who need this in Norwegian. So what if I want to translate this to Norwegian? Before, if I want to do that, I'd have to like go to Python, find some like translation model, do a bunch of stuff. But with Databricks AI functions, you can do that directly in SQL. And so if I just go over here, I can just say, like, hey, can you tell me about Databricks SQL AI functions? And it will search our documentation and it knows about these things. And so it will give me then basically a summary. It says, hey, these are AI functions built into SQL that let you apply AI over your data in SQL and Databricks notebooks. It links me to some documentation. So if I would click on these things, I could see it would just pull up the Databricks documentation. And then it tells me basically like, here's a list of different functions. And I say like, oh, awesome. I was talking to my AI this way. Yeah, awesome. Can you help me to apply a sentiment analysis and AI translates to take review summary and translates to Norwegian and give a sentiment score. And it says, yeah, you can use AI Translate and AI Analyze Sentiment. And so then it writes a SQL code for me. And let's see if that worked. Yes. Take a sip of water while it's running. And there we go. With like 2 lines of code, we were able to basically translate to Norwegian and give a sentiment score. And so I do speak a little bit of Norwegian, so I can see not good, ikke bra, that's right, and then the negative versus positive. And so we can do a quick gut check, and it looks like it did a pretty good job of doing that. The next one I want to show you is, this is a newer one called AI Forecast. And this is basically you can predict future values based on your current values. And so again, in order to do this, you would have had to mostly go to Python, get some model to do this. But with Databricks SQL functions, we can do this directly in SQL. And so I'll say, hey, can you tell me about Databricks SQL AI Forecast? And again, I'll say, hey, like this does this. Can you help me use AI Forecast to predict the price, average selling price of cars in 2015? Or sorry, in 2025. Sorry, this data set goes up to 2015. And we'll say, yeah, here's how you do that. And it will just basically give me the function and write the SQL for me. And so then we can write this. And I'll give you a little bit of disclaimer is this is a newer AI function that the assistants sometimes have a harder time doing. And I think it actually did it totally correct this time, which is really great. So then we can see, kind of the average selling price of a used car in 2025 is going to be predicted at $28,000. And, just to gut check this, we can just Google say, what is the average selling price of a used car in 2025? And it looks like, let's see, so it looks like it says it's $25,000. So we were a little bit over, but if I go back here, it was well within the range of the lower value and the upper value. And so based on this data set alone, we were able to make a pretty somewhat accurate future prediction for the average selling price of a car, which again, the fact that we're doing this all in SQL, I think is pretty awesome. The last thing that I'll show you is AI query. And I guess I'll have one other thing after this, but last AI function. And so this is basically just like a general purpose, a query function that you can use basically. So I just give it the endpoint that I want to use here. And then I say whatever I want. So I say, hey, based on the text, give me a rating from 1 to 10. Tell me how useful a review is. Only output 1 through 10. I could say whatever I wanted here, though. I could say, if the review contains the word salsa, right, BrickTalk is awesome. You can do whatever you want here. And so then you can see I have just the review text in the title. And then let's run this one. And you can see now I have a helpfulness score for my review text. So, I can go in here and I can look and I can see which ones are the reviews that I want to kind of spend more time to look at. And so again, this is really powerful because you can literally use Freeform to do anything you want based for each row of your data. The last thing I want to talk about briefly before we do questions is SQL scripting and SQL pipe syntax. And so SQL scripting is basically like, you can write if statements and then you can, if then and for loops and do things in your SQL. And so one of the use cases, like there's a ton of things you can use this for. One of the things I use it for is we have some tables where there's new data coming in every day. And I say like, hey, like if the value that comes in meets this certain thing, add it to this gold table, or if not, add it to this like bronze table. We need to look into this more. So you can imagine there's a ton of applications to use that. So I just want to call it that we have that. And then the final thing I'll call is that we have SQL pipe syntax. And when we first released this, people were like, oh, Jason, you're like the worst. I can't believe pipe syntax is terrible SQL. You should never write it in that way. And I'm like, hey, the point of this isn't to say that you should use pipe syntax. The point is to say, if you want to, if that's something that you're used to, if you find that useful, you can use pipe syntax to write your SQL. So basically, I could say like from my data set, like join and then select finally. So you can basically write your SQL in any order. So you can see if I run this, it will run. It will not give me a syntax error. So those are the things that I kind of wanted to talk to you all about. There's tons of other stuff that I couldn't have the time to go into. I could talk about the SQL editor for a long time, but hopefully you all found something useful in that. And so with that, I think we can turn it over to any questions that people have. And I'll stop presenting so I can see, or so you can see me.
Great. So anyone who has a question, please do the raise your hand button. There was one earlier I saw in here from Nathan that says, can you guys have a hotkey for run like Control R?
Yes, we have. So are you saying, because we have like Command Enter or Control Enter to run, are you saying that you prefer to make that customizable so you could do whatever you wanted? Or were you not aware of the Command R hotkey?
I think they were not aware of the Command R hotkey. Not sure.
Okay, yeah, so we have that. Good news.
Okay, great. Cool. All right, so hands are raised. Let's see here. Simon.
Hi, nice to meet you all. First of all, thanks for great presentation, Jason. I really look the like and feel of new SQL Editor. A lot of great features were added from what I can see. And as someone who has been using Management Studio for years, I will quickly feel at home here, I guess. And query snippets are super useful. I use them heavily in Management Studio. And to people unfamiliar with this feature, you can look like some kind of wizard. So that's great. And combine this with contextual AI features, this is going to be super productivity boost. But I have one question.
Yes.
Few days ago on the community forum, one user asked about tagging queries, because in the legacy query editor, there was a feature that allowed you to put a tag on the query.
Yes.
And this is something we can find in the new version, or this is something that is missing from a new version?
No, that's a great question. So yes, tags are one of those features that it wasn't super heavily used in the old SQL editor, and so we were like, oh, maybe we can get away with not adding them. But then in the new SQL, we have heard people asking for them, and I think there is kind of there are a few different use cases for them, and so we are going to add them, but they're not in the new SQL editor yet, but they will be coming hopefully soon. I can't commit to a timeline, but they are something we're working on.
Cool.
Great. Thank you for response.
Okay, George.
Sorry, thank you, Jason. That was really great. You mentioned that you'd be able to have multiple tabs, or you are able to have multiple SQL notebooks open, and that eventually you can have multiple results windows as well, which I think that's really fantastic. But you also showed us how you can run multiple select statements in one notebook. Will you also be able to sort of split the results window for that into two different results windows and sort of put those side by side as well?
That's a good question. So you're saying like you like it that they're like kind of there and you can have two results, but you want to be able to split them in the same window. And like
Exactly.
you prefer that in one query and not in kind of two different queries. Yeah, that's something we can, I've heard that before, and I think that'd be awesome. It's just like, to be honest, it's challenging, like kind of having to fit everything down there. And so I think that's definitely a feature request I can take back to the team. I will say one thing, let me share my screen again, that you could maybe do in the meantime is if you were to just take, for example, we go back to our BrickTalk demo here. If I was just take this query and run it in the assistant, which I don't know if you knew you could do that, but give me a scratch cell here. It will just give me something, and I don't know if you all know, but you can like do whatever you want in these cells. It's basically like another query cell, and so I could like paste this in, and then it would run. And so that's maybe one way. We need to fix I don't know why it's highlighting this as incorrect. We need to fix that, but that's maybe one way that you could kind of compare two results within the same query side by side. But I hear you that it'd be nice to be able to kind of just do this directly in the result table itself.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Rowan.
Yeah, hello. Well, thank you very much for the talk again. Especially the AI functionality of the new AI function in SQL. Like that, I hadn't seen that yet, and that was particularly impressive. But my question actually is about the results window stuff. I thought it was really cool how you could just commit the code once you've done your different filters. You can just press commit and it will add that across.
Yeah.
I was curious if the same functionality is there for like that almost select option where you could reorder your columns or deselect different columns. Can you almost commit that to your code in the same sense that you can with the filter functionality?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, actually, we do not have that ability to kind of, if you do that, it's just kind of like a visual thing. But so it sounds like that would be something you'd like, is the ability to translate, like, yeah, what you do in the column selection or column export, to be able to apply that to SQL directly as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it's obviously not a big deal at all, but it was just like, it's almost saving. I know you get the history, but almost like saving that particular view, I suppose, that you've got of it at that moment in time.
Yeah. No, we don't have that functionality right now, but I can definitely see how that would be useful. So I can take that back to the team as another request as well.
That's cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. Sold to 9:40 a.m. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I appreciate this. Jason, I cannot thank you enough for coming and sharing with our community. This has been awesome. And yeah, I'm going to send everybody the recording and a follow-up survey. And I hope that you guys come to more BrickTalks. Jason, you are the inaugural BrickTalks Meister. So you get a place in history, actually. So that's awesome. I love it. Oh, Parush had one last question for us, I guess. Parush.
Maybe they meant to raise their.
Sorry. Okay. I think he was trying to clap and he hit the other button by mistake, which happens all the time, especially to me. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. You can expect the recording and a survey, which I would really, really appreciate. I want to make these the best they can be and grow them and have them. My plan is to have these at least once a month, if not more. So thank you so much for attending, and go Databricks. Thanks, you guys. Happy SQLing.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.